by Let Me Explain Studios, my crazy theater teacher. Let's go. I'm excited.
Some of you understand what you're about to get into. In 3 of my videos, I have mentioned a certain teacher of mine, a certain mentally unstable teacher. Given that one of those videos has over 7 million views at the moment, people are getting a little curious about this infamous educator from my past. Well, loins, explainers and entertainers. Because we're finally talking about it, here we go. This is the story of my emotionally abusive high school theater teacher. Now, because it is, I know I run the risk of sounding like a crybaby, whining over their teacher, not giving them the lead part of the day, and trust me, I completely understand people like that exist. I've been in theater a long time. But I'd like to think that this story has more to do with me being in an unhealthy authority figure relationship. I'm not a martyr here, I guarantee others have had it far worse, but this woman did damage. We'll call her Medusa, and that was her actual nickname, and she wore it like a freaking badge of honor. No joke. She put a sign on the backstage door that said, out, beware Medusa. Boy, that should have been a warning in more ways than one. Okay, so I met Medusa my first year of high school. She was the only teacher running the entire theater department, so no matter what type of theater class you took, she would be teaching it. She also ran the theater club and directed all the after-school plays. All casting decisions were left up to her. You're catching my drift. She had a totalitarian grip on every aspect of this theater department. There was no other adult there to balance her out or, more importantly, witness her behavior. Now, for some context about who I was back then. In high school, I was shy, socially awkward, issues, a nervous wreck, and I didn't really have any friends, even in the theater club. I was a doormat, to put it bluntly. But when I stepped onto a stage, I was a completely different person. I could be strong and brave, confident and clever. I could show the world what I was made of. Performing was my release, my therapy. I guess that's why I didn't immediately take a powder when I learned how crazy this theater teacher was. I was holding out for that one big part, that one chance to show everyone what I could do. And pleasing this woman was the key to what I wanted. Yeah, that won't lead to anything bad, I'm sure. So what made Medusa so awful, I hear you asking? Well, for one, she was incredibly unpredictable. You never knew what kind of mood she was gonna be in or what was gonna set her off. A joke she laughed at yesterday would offend her the next day. One day she's kind and supportive, the next day she's catty and vindictive. And because of her volatile nature, it was a gamble anytime you needed to ask her a question or ask for help. Sometimes she'd be decent enough, and then sometimes she's pure evil for wasting her time with a dumb question. Ask someone else. It would take me a stupid amount of time just to work up the courage to ask her a question before chickening out and finding a different way around my problem. So I think one of the most frustrating things about Medusa was her favoritism. Plain and simple, if you weren't one of her favorites, there was a very low chance of you getting a play, or sometimes a part at all. I'm not saying she was shallow. No, that's exactly what I'm saying, because all of her favorites had 2 things in common. They were pretty, and they were popular. 2 skills ya girl rolled a 0 on. Medusa also protected her favorites to an infuriating degree. One of them was a big bully of mine, and Medusa did absolutely nothing to stop it, even after I begged her to. I was talking to my mom about the script, and she told me once they presented Medusa about this bully at an after-school play, and Medusa was more concerned about him getting in trouble than what he was doing. Ooh, that is a very brave thing to say to a protective mother. Correction, that is a very brave thing to say to my mother. So yeah, if you weren't one of her favorites, you were stuck in the chorus, as they say. Hey Becca, maybe you were just an awful actor. I mean, fair point. Maybe I just wasn't any good. Thing is, Medusa always gave me A's for my performances in the theater classes during the normal school days. Medusa even once rushed up to the stage after a dark, dramatic scene to give me a hug because she was so moved by my performance. So, you see, I got mixed signals from this woman all the time. I didn't know what to think. Dang it, do you hate me or not? And this cat and mouse stringing me along emotional manipulation was what kept me hopeful. I'd think to myself, if I don't complain, if I do my best, if I do every little thing she asks of me, maybe one day she will throw me a bone. Maybe one day I will gain her favor and be given a good part in a play. Hey, you hear that? That's not good. That is not a healthy mindset to be in. That is an unhealthy relationship to have with anyone. But that was the story for me for 3 years of high school. However, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Once when I was a freshman, I asked Medusa why she didn't give me the latest play, and she told me, seniors take precedence in casting because they're graduating. And I thought, Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. When I'm a senior, I'll be a priority. Come senior year, pretty much all of her favorites had graduated, and the only two senior actors left were me and this one other guy. In fact, a very large portion of the club had either graduated or left, so pickings were pretty slim that year for willing participants. Anyways, we were going to do the comedic play Noises Off. And in that show, there is a role called Dottie meant for an older woman who needed a Cockney accent and had a boy-toy love interest. Hilarious. So naturally, being the oldest girl in the theater department, having a plump, middle-aged looking body, being able to do a pretty great Cockney accent, and being a senior meant that the stars were finally aligning in my favor. And the day before the audition, I was hanging out in the theater club room, and I told another student that I was hoping for the part of Dottie, and Medusa overheard. She looked right at me, smiled, nodded very obviously, and gave me a big thumbs up.
Okay.
Gee, Becca, it sounds like your chances of getting this part are pretty good. I know, right? That's what I thought too. But gosh golly darn it, call me M. Night Shyamalan because this story has a twist.
The crazy teacher is kind of pure evil.
Went to the audition, gave it everything I had, knocked it out of the park, was the only girl who could do a Cockney accent. But the next morning, Medusa posted the cast on the bulletin board, and nothing. She didn't even cast me.
Oh, man. For real. For real.
Excuse me, Medusa. I was wondering, why didn't you cast me? Oh, it's because you were too tall.
Oh, she was too tall.
Too tall?
Yes, only short guys auditioned, and I needed your love interest to be taller than you.
Funny thing about that excuse, she had cast the only senior as my love interest, and he was
love interest
taller than me.
Oh, he's taller than
She
her.
flat out lied to my face. But because I think I was in shock, I didn't question it at that moment, and I just walked away. Turns out the truth eventually came out because a couple days later, some concerned tech theater girls told me they heard Medusa say something in passing conversation with the other students.
The reason I didn't cast Becca is because she's not one of the group. She keeps to herself way too much and doesn't have any friends.
Okay.
She didn't cast me because I wasn't popular.
Oh man, that sucks. Oh.
That's it! I am done! I am out! Goodbye! I am over this insanity! You ain't dragging me down with you, sister! Peace, adios, sayonara, das vidanya, bonsoir, and all those other different languages. Consider this my final bow because we are done here! Thanks for the memories. You'll make a great YouTube video someday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And I left. I left and went straight to my advisor to drop out of all of Medusa's classes. Which my
she's dropping out?
do for me when
She's
learned
dropping
what I was
out?
trying to escape. Oh yeah, she's crazy. Consider it done. I'll be honest, the situation was a little bit more complicated than just not being given the part that I wanted. There was so much more. But this video is long enough already. And let me tell you something, explainers and entertainers. The moment I left, I felt like a completely different person. My confidence shot through the roof, I was happier, I didn't care so much what people thought anymore. Heck, even guys were paying more attention to me. My choir director noticed the change and gave me the award for Most Improved Senior. I didn't even have to give up my love of theater because I went out and auditioned for community theater with adults. I even got a leading part in a musical that summer and won the Best Actress award for the show season at that particular theater. Everything was falling into place for me, and all because I finally worked up the courage to say I deserve better and walk away from a toxic relationship. These situations don't always end like fairy tales, but for me, it did. So, what happened to Medusa? A couple years after I graduated, I remember hearing the news that she had been forced to resign. I can't be 100% sure if this is the true story, so take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt, but this was the story I was told. Medusa got incredibly intoxicated on an overnight competition trip with students, locked herself in the boys' hotel room, and passed out on the bed, forcing the boys to sleep in the girls' room. Yeah. I mean, knowing her, that completely makes sense. When I first heard, I wasn't surprised in the slightest. I guess all I can say is, peace out, Medusa.
Wait,
Wherever you
slide
are,
the scene was
I
yeah.
hope you're in a better place mentally and emotionally. I mean that. Hey, at least she taught me that a bad situation in the past doesn't have to weigh you down. Because if I'm honest, I'm pretty sure it was my time spent with Medusa that taught me how to stand up to an even worse teacher later on down the line. So, that's the long and short of it, explainers and entertainers.
Okay.
There are more stories that came out of Medusa's theater department, but those...
Interesting story. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll stop inside.